It is just about that time. In fact, it's exactly that time. Good morning, Garden America Nation. We are back in the saddle, back in the studio. I'm Brian Main. My colleagues, John Begnasker, Tiger Palafox. The A team is here. The varsity team, as we like to call it. Hope you had a good week. We kick off the weekend together here on Garden America. Everything is going to be coming up roses today. We'll be talking more about that later on. But it is good to have you. Lots of people tuned in already, and we do appreciate it. We do our best to kick things off at about 8:06, 6 minutes after the hour. I know some people get a little bit anxious for us prior to that, but we hit the airwaves, Biz Talk Radio and Facebook Live at 8:06. Tiger.
Hey, good morning.
Hey. What's going on?
Oh, it's just, are we midsummer now? Or are we wrapping up? Are we going into fall?
I would
officially,
say we just passed the hump of summer.
Is that, yeah.
Let's defer to John.
Well, isn't the summer solstice the beginning of summer,
right?
The first day, and that was only a month ago.
Oh, gosh.
So
that's true.
I don't think we're in the middle of summer until we hit the dog days.
Which
is coming up, August, right?
The dog days of summer.
Because right now we're experiencing that like ups and downs where it's hot. And then, like, for instance, today it was cloudy and cool in the morning, and it's perfectly good. And then we'll get hot. So it's kind of like this up and down tease.
But that's the way San Diego is. It just, people think, oh, it's getting cold now. It's going to be cold for the rest of the year. Then it gets hot again. Then it gets cold. You're right. It's a lot of up and down, which can play havoc with the plant material.
Well, it's funny because 2 weeks ago when we got that rain. So
what a surprise that was.
Well, it's amazing what the weather and water evaporation, because I had my irrigation system turned up for summer, because before that it was really hot and everything was stressing out, and I was watering, rather than watering 3 times a week, I was watering 4 times a week, a little bit more water. And then we got that rain, and I walked out into my lawn, and it was almost like soppy because it was just staying now. I got a little bit of cloud, a little bit of rain.
It was a lot of rain, too. We had, at least in Fallbrook, we had 3 hours of rain.
Really?
Steady rain.
Wow.
I mean, the ground is still wet, and my soil is all DG.
Yeah. Isn't that shocking? So it's just a weird kind of a funky thing so now I had to turn back down my irrigation system because I found myself overwatering stuff. But
well, that's just it. It's very psycho, up and down. You can't
But
tell.
the plants really like this kind of weather because there's some
growing.
Humidity that goes with it. So the tropicals, just hibiscus, plumeria.
John dropped by my place last week.
Oh, that's right.
It's been a long time since he'd seen it. He says, this patio's a lot more going on out here than before.
There's a lot less room to walk around.
The word I used was impenetrable.
Impenetrable, yes. And he got to see the size of the palm trees.
I saw all my weeds were at Brian's house.
All the weeds.
I used to, I hate killing a plant, even if it's a weed. So I had queen palms come up as weeds, and I dug them up and transplanted them.
What, knee-high? How big were those?
I think they were about knee-high when I gave them to you. They didn't have their true leaves yet, I don't think.
No, not at all. In fact, they were just I didn't even know if they were going to survive.
Big pieces of grass.
But now tell them how big they are.
Oh, my gosh.
They're 20 feet.
Monkeys could climb them.
Yeah, they're huge. They're huge. Yeah. And then the ficus is almost as tall.
Yeah, that was another thing. I had a ficus come up from seed, and I thought, well, this is interesting.
Yeah. So and now they're thriving, and that was 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Benjamina, or which one?
No,
what is that? It's not a Benjamina. It's a different.
Kind of looks like a Nitida.
Okay.
But I didn't have a Nitida anywhere near my property, so I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on. That's what's been going on.
You know what we get to do today?
I was going to ask you that. Go ahead.
I hope we get to save a nursery.
Yeah.
I'd love to save a nursery.
Yeah. A good friend of ours, she's been on the show before, Burling Leong, the owner of Burlington Roses, is going to be on today, and we'll be talking about her business. We'll be talking about roses, and we'll be talking about a GoFundMe page that hopefully will help her survive the drought.
Yeah, I know. It's a tough time depending on where you're at with growing plants, with having a nursery.
Burling's always been a good supporter of the Save the Roses auction, too.
Yeah.
She's been a speaker
before. She's donating a rose this year.
We'll talk to her about a brand new rose that she has hybridized. And then let's see. She's also going to be in the auction this year. She will be one of the speakers
Oh, cool.
in the
Well,
auction
that's
this
going to
year.
be cool. What's the date? November or something?
Yes, it's definitely November something. We have a board meeting this coming week to find the actual venue where we're going to have it, because the old place we used to have it in Oceanside is been sold. We can't have it there anymore.
They don't want it. They said
Right.
that was the first thing they decided. Get those Rose people out of here.
That's right.
We don't want them. Let's see. What else? What other business, John, do we have to talk about?
That's a good question.
It's a good question. You want to do the quote of the week right now while
All right.
it's top of mind?
And while we're floundering for something
Floundering
to
for
say,
something to say?
I don't know if you know who H.L. Mencken was,
No.
but he was a journalist, a newspaper guy, and kind of a satirist.
Was he back in the Dorothy Kilgallen days?
Yes, he was, as a matter of fact.
That's okay.
Anyway, his quote somewhat pertained to roses, but I just thought it was interesting, his take on this is kind of his take on life, too.
I thought it was a clunky quote, but now that you've described him, it makes sense.
He said, an idealist is one who, on noticing that roses smell better than a cabbage, concludes that it will also make better soup.
Almost sounds like something Dave Barry would quote.
Yeah, he's kind of that type of guy,
Yeah.
except Dave Barry's more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
H.L. Mencken was more sarcastic.
So speaking of nurseries, and it'll be August tomorrow, last day of July. What happens now? What's going on? What's selling?
Survival.
What do people want?
Survival.
Survival.
It's hot.
Yeah.
And
Why is my plant dying? Why is this,
exactly.
But we were just talking about tropicals. Isn't everybody looking for those this time?
Yeah,
of year?
that's what's blooming right now. Plumerias, hibiscus, cannas, gardenias,
Bougainvillea.
Yeah, they love the humidity and the hot.
Yeah, so, but we also know that it's also one of the hardest times of year to plant most of these things as well. So
They should already be in the ground.
yeah, but so yeah, that's what's happening at the nursery, and but it's also just kind of this phase that we're just trying to survive the heat and have what we have go the test of summer at this moment.
Kind of in between until it gets into the fall. And of course, here in San Diego, it'll be 95 degrees in October.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, no. In terms of the nursery, that's what's happening. What else?
A general rule used to be that garden centers, independent garden centers, from June 1st on, spent the whole year trying not to lose everything they made in spring.
Yeah, exactly.
June 1st on. Yeah, that makes sense.
But no, and as far as other fun stuff is trying to figure out what's going to happen during the holidays, because with all we're going to talk to Burling today about the drought, but part of the drought is fires, and these fires are where Christmas tree farms are as well, and so some of those are being affected by the fires.
Now,
and that's going to have an impact on the trees this year.
A couple of years ago, we talked about the lack of Christmas trees and how it would take a couple, 2 or 3 years for that to catch up and to feel the impact.
And with the drought and the fires, now they're having even more problems.
So I guess this would be when fake Christmas trees go through the roof in terms of people's purchase, right?
Right.
It'd be a fake Christmas tree.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
But, so this will be an interesting year for Christmas trees. So we're trying to scramble around for that right now because we're getting our notices about, what we will actually be receiving and in our orders that we've already placed.
Now, I would imagine, does this affect like certain varieties are more available than other varieties?
Yeah, because where the fires and drought are, where your noble firs, Douglas firs are coming from, Fraser's firs mostly come from the Carolinas. So, I don't think that they're being affected by any of these situations at this moment in time. But definitely the noble fir and Douglas fir.
Would you like to be our guest next week? We can interview you. John and I can talk to you about this very same subject.
Yeah, perfect.
Douglas fir.
Ooh.
What else? We got about a minute here before the first break. We're going to bring our guest on, Burling, and save a
You know
nursery.
who the Douglas fir was named after?
What's that?
You know who the Douglas fir was named after?
Yeah,
Michael Douglas.
We talked about this at one time.
No, it's not Michael Douglas.
No?
Not Kirk Douglas.
Kirk Douglas.
David Douglas, the Scottish plant explorer.
Well, we call him Dave, but yeah, David.
Davey, as you like to call
Dave
him.
Douglas, yeah, Dave. It's going to be one of those shows. We're going to have a good time. John came in like he'd been into the Happy Juice this morning, before we went on the air.
It might be all the new drugs I'm taking.
Yeah.
It's good, though. That's fun.
But, anytime I come here and I see you guys,
you just get giddy.
I get giddy. That's right.
So thank you for tuning in, those that are with us right off the bat here on Garden America. We're going to take our first break, welcoming those on Biz Talk Radio. You're listening to last week's show, but nevertheless, it is still summertime. We're going to have a good time today, bringing on Burlington, talk about saving nurseries, roses, all kinds of things happening. It is break time. I'm Brian Main, John Begnasker, Tiger Palafox. Thank you for tuning in to Garden America. Going to get our guest on the line. Be right back with you. Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. All right, we are back. Those tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, thank you for supporting our many sponsors. For the rest of us here on Facebook Live, we're going to get things rolling. And remember, a lot of topics to be discussed this morning. So questions, comments, you can post them right there on our Facebook page. Tiger?
Yeah, so this morning we have Burling Leong joining us from Burlington Rose Nursery. And we're going to be talking about a few different topics, a little bit across the board. But, Burling, how are you doing this morning?
Oh, thank you. I'm doing fine, Tiger. Thank you for inviting me to be on your show this morning.
Yeah, and we have so much to cover. So I figured, why don't we go ahead and start with what's going on with your nursery at this moment in time? Because you're located in Visalia, California, an area that's affected by these droughts that everybody's hearing about across the nation. So what's happening and why do you need people's help?
Well, unfortunately, due to the drought, there's a combination of things. Due to the drought, the water table has dropped so much that my well, my pump is above the water level, unfortunately. And due to the drought, a lot of the farmers are forced to use their pumps because they do not have access to surface water, or would have a nice snowpack and the lakes are full. They release the water to the farmers, and the farmers will get a lot of water, but this year there's no water for the farmers in my surrounding area and in a lot of farmers in other counties. So the severe drought has caused the water table to drop significantly, more than ever before, because the farmers are forced to use their pumps. And so my pump ran out of water. So unfortunately, I'm trying to raise enough money so I'd be able to afford to drill a new pump, new well, and get a new pump.
And I want our listeners to understand that you aren't just you're not just like any nursery, just selling flowers and plants and vegetables, but you're actually an important part of the rose community where, you're hybridizing, saving, repopulating some of these kind of rare or endangered varieties that we have. So, you're doing more than just selling plants and flowers to people, but you're an important part of the horticultural community by helping, save some of the varieties that might go away if people like you don't try and repopulate them. So, John, you had mentioned one of her roses, what was it called?
School Spirit. School
Spirit. And I'm going to post a picture of this rose right now onto our Facebook feed here. But, just one of the, unique colors, varieties that you help, did you help introduce this one? What was your relationship.
She bred that rose. That's her rose.
Yeah.
That's my rose. Yes. Not only do I try to save and preserve a lot of these hard to find roses that were no longer in commerce, I can be able, by propagation, able to introduce them back into commerce. And a lot of these roses are significantly, historical. By having this collection, I'm able to restore a lot of these historical rose gardens throughout the United States. By having these roses, if they lose theirs, then I'll be able to provide them another that rose back into the rose garden to keep their rose garden historically significant.
You know,
for example, Hearst Castle,
right.
Rancho Los Alamitos in Long Beach, the Huntington. So there are the Brooklyn Botanical Rose Garden, New York, that has a large selection. Peggy Rockefeller Rose Garden, New York. So there's a lot of huge botanical rose gardens out there that has historical roses in them, but when they lose them, they need to have a source to replace that rose back, and I'm able to provide a lot of these roses. So I think it's neat to be able to do that, and it really
it is
rewarding to me personally.
You know, and I mean this in the nicest way, Burling. You are historical. Because
no, I'm not that old yet.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean that you are an important part of rose history. I mean, you, I don't know when you started working with Ralph Moore, but I figure you had to be about 3, because Ralph died at 102, and that was what, about 13, 15 years ago, something like that.
Yes, I think so.
Wow,
sounds correct.
I wanted to ask if you could share with our listeners, you mentioned all the projects you had worked on, but what I found really interesting was your work with the roses at Hearst Castle in San Simeon. And what was as I recall, the main problem there was all the original roses had been lost and replaced with modern roses that you could get at Home Depot or somewhere. And what was your task to do?
Yeah, and then I guess the people in charge said, hey, it's not historical, to replace snowbird with icebird that you could get anywhere, like you said, in your local garden center. It's not historical. So they decided to restore that rose garden back to hopefully almost the same varieties that Randolph Hearst and Julia Morgan have selected around there. And so they contacted me, and I think Greg Lowry was supplying the rose bushes, the historical rose bushes, but he doesn't do chip budding or any of the tree roses. So he had them contact me when I was working at Sequoia, and that's how it all started, because that's what I did, was do chip budding in the miniature tree roses. So and I, when I first heard about it, of course, I just say, whoa, wow, wonderful project. And I said yes, didn't realize what I was going to get involved with. I just go ahead and said yes. And so I had to look high and low for a lot of these varieties of these historical roses. And Greg Lowry had some, the San Jose Heritage Rose Garden in San Jose had a lot of them. And then a lot of the rose collectors, rose lovers around the United States and locally help contribute the propagation source by providing budwood for me to be able to bud these tree roses to be grown back over at Hearst Castle. So I'm pretty much 90% completed. I just need 10% more, and then it will be complete.
I'm sorry. Any roses?
That rose garden.
Any roses you were not able to bring back that just don't exist or hard to find?
Yeah, there are some we couldn't find anymore. So sometimes if they had to, they would get a rose that were similar in that color, but it has to be in that era. If it's a 1930 rose, between 1920, I think it cannot be any newer than 1949, because I think that was the cutoff where Randolph Hearst was no longer, at the castle, I think, after 1915. I think he passed away soon after in the early 50s. So that was pretty much the era they want to focus on. So nothing newer than 1949 can be planted up there at the castle.
I know it must have been a challenge, and I know you're not complete, but what an exciting project to be a part of history or being able to bring back history in that way, where you're kind of able to restore something like that. Hey, Burling, we are going to have to take a quick break right now, but when we get back, we will continue talking with Burling Leong from Burlington Rose Gardens.
And we invite your questions, your comments for Burling, talking about roses, the hard-to-find roses, the Hearst Castle situation, bringing back all those historical roses. Whatever's on your mind in terms of this topic, feel free right there on Facebook Live. Post your question, post your comment. Right now, though, on Biz Talk Radio, time to pay a few bills with our sponsors. Going to be a quick turnaround here. Back quickly on Facebook Live. Biz Talk Radio, Brian Main, John Begnasker, Tiger Palafox on this Saturday here with Garden America. As always, we thank you for tuning in and joining us here on Garden America every Saturday morning or maybe Saturday afternoon, depending upon where you are. We also broadcast digitally, podcast, and we're all over the map. Facebook Live, Biz Talk Radio, lots of ways to get a hold of us. So, again, we do appreciate that. As we continue talking about roses, we're talking about a lot of things here in Nursery, Saving Roses, Tiger, with Burling here on the air on Garden America.
Yeah, so just right now, just to let you know, Burling, I did share that link to the GoFundMe page for your nursery. And for the listeners that are just now joining us, there's a GoFundMe going on for Burlington Rose Nursery. She's trying to raise funds to dig a new well. Being in Visalia, being affected by the drought, this well would give her the opportunity to tap into other water resources that will make it easier for her to, save more roses, to be able to produce more plants for people to be to be able to share all over the world. So, your goal, Burling, is to raise $70,000, and I can see right now you're well on your way. You're at $25,000 plus or minus right now. And again, just want to assure everybody this money is going to be going towards, digging a new well, so that way she will be able to ensure that in the future there'll be many, many more roses for example, like the ones that she's saving here at Hearst Castle.
I just got an order from Burling a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if I should tell people this, because when you get roses from Burling, they're liners, right? And they're little small rooted cuttings to start new plants. And you can buy those from a lot of different nurseries, but Burling always puts like 4 or 5 cuttings in there, I think in case 1 or 2 die, right?
Yeah.
That you still have the rose. But, I get those, and then instead of 1 rose, I separate every one of those. So
that's all right.
I have some where I've got like 5 roses.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And, one of Tiger's favorite roses is one that you're growing called the Peggy Martin rose.
Oh, great. Yeah. Good rose.
Yeah. I love that rose. I love the story behind it.
You love the story behind that.
And it's an amazing rose too. So but speaking of rose varieties, you also have a brand new one. And a matter of fact, I was sitting here this morning trying to pull up an image of it for our show today, and John's like, "You're not going to find a picture of that. It's brand new." So it's the Marion Ross rose, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So
a new introduction.
Tell our listeners about that rose.
Okay, the Marion Ross rose is going to be a new introduction of mine. It will be featured in a new ARS new introduction issue for September, October. It's named after the retired actress, Marion Ross, who played Marion Cunningham on the television sitcom Happy Days from 1974 to 1984. And so that came about when one of my customers, Paris, knows one of her sons, Jim, and they talked about how about getting someone to name a rose after his mom, Marion. And so they first contacted me, and I said, well, that's a really big task, if it's something I've never named a rose after someone, a celebrity. So I thought maybe I advise them to contact Weeks or Star Roses, some of the bigger rose companies out there, but they said it would take 3 years in order for them to even decide on a rose and to even get it out on the market. So they came back to me and told me the situation, and I says, okay, well, I'll go see what I have out in my breeding program, and this rose that has been stuck out to me time and time again, this beautiful mauve rose that's a floribunda. It has about 40 up to 45 petals in 4 and 4.5 inch blooms, and it always kept blooming all the time. And I said, well, that's a rose I probably will introduce in the future. And so when this situation come up, I says, that's probably a perfect rose for Marion. It's perfect for cut flowers, has margaret fragrance, and it's pretty much disease resistance and a good repeat bloomer. So I says, well, this has a lot of good characteristics that I like, so I think it'll be a good rose for Marion. And so I mentioned that to Paris and Jim, and they sent pictures, and they loved it. And so that's what we're going to go with.
That's awesome.
The Marion Ross rose.
And what a, I've talked about this before, roses being a part of history, and like we were talking about the Peggy Martin rose, just the stories behind them. And I mean, Happy Days, what an influence on people's life during that generation that they grew up watching that show, and then her being part of that program. So what a fun way to have that, and then be a part of your garden now, to be able to buy that rose and then plant it and then have it to be able to go from there on. So John mentioned that'll be one of the roses in the auction this year,
Burlington
right?
donated one to the auction, right?
And is it available for purchase on your website as well yet, or not yet?
Yeah, it would be introduced in 2022.
Okay.
So as soon as the introduction comes out in the ARS magazine, September, October issue, and then the customers could go ahead and reserve one, and then be shipped out in spring.
Got it.
Hey, Rick's got a good question.
Well, yeah, and it goes along with what we were just talking about. One of our listeners in Idaho, Burling, wants to know what the process you go through to breed a new rose.
Wow, that's first you have a dream, and that dream is what rose would you like to create? That means color, is a bush form, cut flowers. You look at characteristics that you want in that rose. Then the hard part is trying to combine crosses, the parents, seed parent, mother parent, to see if you match up to provide those characteristics that you're looking for. And there's a website called www.helpmefind.com, and if you do some research on there, you'll find like roses that are, let's say, angel face. You want to see what's behind angel face. You want to see what's behind double delight. Some of your favorite roses, you go on that site, and sometimes they'll list the crosses that made that rose. So if you have an idea of a rose that you want to develop, you kind of want to pick a rose that's already been developed with certain characteristics that you like, and then so you do research on that rose and find out what are the parents that brought this rose together, that created that rose. And so it's a long process, but then sometimes Mother Nature does its own, and a lot of people sometimes just cut the seeds off their own roses and collect the seeds and plant them and create new varieties that way without having you do all the thinking. You just let Mother Nature do it for you. And you'd be surprised how many roses are out there, good roses that were just by self-seedlings.
No, I'm sure. That
you just go and get those rose hips, and when they turn orange, you cut them, plant those seeds, and then when they germinate, you're going to get the genetic. Not everyone's going to be the same. It's whatever Mother Nature, and back in genetics, it'll pop up. You'll see different characteristics in each one of these new seedlings.
Yeah, and John,
you select the best ones that you think that has all the characteristics you want. Of course, we're always looking for disease resistance, good foliage, hardiness, and of course, don't have to spray is an important thing. You have to use chemicals on, for black spot and things like that. So there is a testing process behind the breeding program that you want to test for all these good characteristics to see if that rose has those characteristics before you introduce it to the public. Which I do, because all my roses that I introduce have to be propagated easily through cuttings. And if they could root on their own and produce good hardy roots, that's going to be a good hardy rose for you.
And Connie's got a question too, John. Did you see that? Goes along the lines of what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, and actually I'm going to put in a plug for the CCRS Rose Auction. Connie, if you go to ccrsauction.com, you'll find the Dame Edith Helen Rose is going to be in the auction this year. But she also was wondering if it was a rose that you grew, Burling, Dame Edith Helen.
Which one?
It's Dame Edith Helen.
Edith Helen? I don't have that particular rose.
Okay, good.
It's going to be in the auction.
I'm glad it'll be in the auction, Connie. So go to go to the auction.
I love your auction, John, because that's where I have collected a lot for my collection. And I am so happy to be able to get some of these rare roses and introduce them back into commerce where a lot of these big rose growers do not. And so I get my biggest joy when I am able to collect more of these rare and unusual roses and put them back on the market so other people can enjoy them in their gardens.
Hey, Burling, we're going to have to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll continue talking with Burling Leong from Burlington Rose Gardens.
Right, and question or two is what's happening on Facebook, questions, comments for our guest, Burling. So do stay with us. We'll get to those questions. Going to take a break on Biz Talk Radio Facebook Live. I'm Brian Main. You're tuned in to Garden America. John Begnasker, Tiger Palafox, back right after these messages on Biz Talk Radio, and even quicker right here on Facebook Live. Stay with us. And we have returned. Thank you for those tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. If you are listening on Biz Talk Radio, this is the final segment of hour number one. You've got news coming up top of the hour. And then we are back at 6 minutes after for hour number two on Biz Talk Radio. Facebook Live, we continue. Had to go to a quick break, Tiger, as we return with Burling.
Yeah, Burling, one of our listeners watching the program right now also asked if there could be a direct donation made to the nursery. And she also wanted to mention I bought Roller Coaster and St. Mary from Burlington Rose and love them. So, you know, I'm not too savvy with the GoFundMe, but I'm sure with all of these things, they maybe take a cut or maybe they don't. I don't know. But,
yeah,
you know,
if they do, they take a small percentage.
Yeah, but if somebody wanted to make a
funds.
direct donation to you, I mean, would you be able to receive that as well?
Yes, I think if you go to the link on Standing by My Sign, there's the address that they could just send it directly to me, Burlington Rose Nursery, with the address on that sign.
Okay.
The nursery sign and just send a check will be fine.
Yeah, and that'll
Can I also say that I want to say thank you to all my supporters, my friends, my colleagues, all the rose lovers, rose societies, anyone that has contributed to my fund. I really appreciate all the help that you have provided. My family, especially my two sisters, Cynthia and Becky, they put together the GoFundMe. At first they said, "This GoFundMe," and you know, I said, I don't know. I'm not the type of person like to ask for money from anybody, and so they suggested it, and so I said, well, okay, let's give it a try. And I'm just overwhelmed by all the support that I have gotten.
Yeah. You know, in Burling, you're the type of person who would be overwhelmed because everything that you do is you don't have any kind of agenda behind it. You do it out of the goodness of your heart, and you run your nursery because you love roses and you love people. And I'm not saying that to embarrass you, but there's people all over the world that admire you for that and are just happy to be able to give something back to you for all the joy that you've given them.
Well, thank you so much. Cheering me up here, I'm choking up. But, I really appreciate what you said, and I'm honored to be on your radio show, and honored to help out anything I can do for the rose industry or plants in general. I enjoy growing roses and plants and providing all these roses to put some joy in people's garden and their lives.
Yeah. You know, and I think in some way your mentor, Ralph Moore, was that type of person also.
Yes, he was.
I know that a lot of rose breeders were very secretive about what they were doing and really didn't want to help out other nurseries. And I remember Dee Bennett in Chula Vista struggling to open her nursery and trying to learn things, and Ralph shared freely all kinds of information with her.
He sure did, and she put out some really wonderful roses. And that's another thing, too. There's a lot of rose breeders out there that work hard to bring their talent and bred some really wonderful roses. Dee Bennett's one of them, and I can name really a lot of other breeders out there that had put out roses, but when they pass on, there's nobody to carry on their legacy. And so I am proud and honored to be able to carry these roses for other breeders. So their hard work and their legacy continues to provide joy in other people's gardens.
And one of the reasons why I like, what John does with roses so much, and, I get fascinated with, obviously, with the stories is, to some degree, these roses are telling history. They were either part of a movie or part of a property, like we're talking about Hearst Castle. And, to have these is to carry on that story, to carry on the history of that time. As you mentioned, you're trying to, create that time period again. So, it's more than just having a nice flower. Sometimes the flowers aren't even nice,
Right.
Sometimes the rose is not really great growing, but, it's still worth saving. So, kudos to you, and thank you very much. And so we'll put this out again, the GoFundMe for your nursery to help you be able to have that wealth to, ensure that generations to come will be able to enjoy some of these roses, and you will be able to continue your journey as far as saving roses from all over the world. And, we'll have you on again when you have some success to tell us. How's that sound, Burley?
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
By the way, Suzanne mentions that she's also sending a check directly to you, so maybe just let our listeners know if you don't want to use the GoFundMe page, you can go to Burling's website, which is in the newsletter, and we have links to it, or just Google Burlington Roses, and you'll come up with an address and a contact if you need to talk to Burling direct. And also, I'm sure that she still has some roses for sale. So, unfortunately, Burling, I think, is about as technologically advanced as I am, and you can't see what she has available on her website, but she will email you an availability list if you just go there and ask for it.
Yes, I would be so happy to do that. Thank you. Thank you for the invite and me to be on your radio program this morning, and for all the topics we talked about, and I really enjoyed being on your show.
Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. Thank you, Burling.
All right. Yeah, and good response from people that are going to send checks directly, and people that really care about these kind of programs and understand the historical significance of what it's all about.
Yeah, and I think that that's something for on a larger scale topic is just independent nurseries like this. And like I say, this she doesn't really run. I mean, she does run a nursery that does just sell plants to people.
Right.
But at the same time, she's also preserving a history. And I think that that'd be nice for my nursery to do. We don't do that. We don't preserve plants and create plants. We sell plants, and that's our focus. But
you can create a division for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nursery could be part of history for sure. Yeah.
And that's what you need. Find a rose from that era, 1910.
There we go.
And that's your logo.
Yeah, I'll have to find some roses from the 1910 era. That sounds like a really great idea.
Seriously, because 1910 is right when your nursery
when the nursery was started. Yeah.
How do I remember that? I don't know. That's weird. Yeah, I am good with dates. Interesting.
In high school, you had a lot of dates.
Yeah, I did, John. Some better than others. But we've got about a minute to go in this segment, and again on Biz Talk Radio, John's level's back up. There you go, John.
I was going to mention that my last order, I mentioned I got one a few weeks ago from Burling. I didn't even realize there was a rose in there that I had not ordered, and it was called Kitty Hawk.
And that just came? You didn't order it?
I didn't order it, But there was, to my knowledge, there was only one. It's a miniature rose. There was only one left in the world.
We're going to take a break, John. Hold it. We're going to hold this thought because on Biz Talk Radio,
Well, if you
got
remind
news.
me, I'll finish the story when we come back.
On the other side, John
right.
is going to finish this story on the other side. So it's going to be a bit longer on Biz Talk Radio, much quicker here on Facebook Live. This is Garden America. Stay with us as we continue on your weekend. For those that are tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, welcome to hour number 2, 6 minutes after the hour. Biz Talk Radio, thank you so much for supporting our many advertisers and sponsors. Those on Facebook Live, we just keep on rolling. And John, we had to interrupt John before we took a break on Biz Talk Radio and Facebook Live, John. So this is your reminder.
All right, so we were talking about a miniature rose
Yes.
that I had learned about called Kitty Hawk. And to my knowledge, there was only one left in the world. And there was a woman who had posted a picture of it on Help Me Find Roses, and I sent her an email and asked if I could get a cutting. And I told her how important it was to preserve that rose. And she mentioned that, oh, I didn't realize it was that rare. It's growing under some other shrubs and barely hanging on. So she said, I'll take better care of it, and when I get cuttings, if the rose does better, I'll send you some, right? So that was almost 3 years ago, and I called back or I emailed her back to check on the cuttings, and I think there still weren't any available a year later. So I kind of forgot about it because I'm doing a lot of other things, like building a house. And when I got this order from Burling, there was a Kitty Hawk rose in there.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. You made a statement, and you've said this before, that as far as we know, this is the last one in the world. Or
right.
What you mean to say is you know of no other place in the world, because there could be others in the world, just very rare.
There could be, right.
Right. And is this one of those cases?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Also, it depends where the rose was bred. If it was, like this was a U.S. rose,
Mm-hmm.
so U.S. meaning the United States, right?
Right.
So the odds of it being in Europe were not very great.
Okay.
So if there was no one else in the United States that had it, the odds were pretty close.
So you can kind of scale it down.
Right. But what had happened was that some people went by this woman who had the rose, and she gave them cuttings and said, could you take these to Burling and have her root them and send them to John?
Now it comes full circle.
But no one told me this was going on, and it just showed up. And
people like to keep you in the dark, John. I've come to
The
realize.
the less you know, the better, John.
Yeah, don't
and the
worry
older
about
I
it.
get, the easier that is.
Need to know basis.
Yeah.
So Kitty Hawk. So what era for this rose?
I think it was around the 70s, 80s. I'd
Okay.
have to look it up
Okay.
and help me find out
Right,
for
when you
sure.
say Kitty Hawk, I think of
That was right when you were beginning your rose interest, right? Because you didn't start really getting into roses until you were here in California.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't even have any roses at my house while I was the rose buyer for Armstrong
Right.
Nurseries.
Oh, that's right. I remember you saying how you
Yeah.
were kind of just like whatever, kind of very passive, a passive interest when you were dealing with roses.
Well, I had lots of other things that I was interested in at the time in growing, and I told the story about how our friend Chris Greenwood
Yeah.
asked me what roses I had at home, and I said, I don't have any roses.
And I think that just blew his mind. What are you
Yeah, and
talking
he had
about,
this
John?
look on his face, and I said, is something wrong? He says, no, I just think it's odd that the rose buyer for Armstrongs doesn't grow roses.
Which I think is the same thing John would say. That sounds very much like what John
Yeah,
would
Yeah, that
go,
would be a comment.
Huh,
John
I
would
just
have.
find that interesting. That
So
you
I
don't,
took that as a challenge.
Yeah.
And now you have how
Now
many?
I
2,000?
No, only 1,300, but
Well, there's plenty of time.
there's a 2,000 goal there.
Yeah, and so
I would have been a lot closer had I not lost between 300 and 400 when I moved.
when you say Kitty Hawk, I think of the aircraft carrier. Isn't there an aircraft carrier, the Kitty
Yeah.
Hawk?
Really,
That's
I
right.
think of the Wright brothers.
Yeah.
Okay, Wright brothers, which all falls into the same category.
There's I think it might even be an exhibition hybrid tea called the Wright brothers. So you could plant the Wright brothers with
And
Kitty Hawk
Kitty Hawk.
down at the base of it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, and it goes back to what Tiger was saying about the history of roses.
Weren't they in Plymouth?
No. Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, right?
North Carolina?
Yeah.
Yeah, North Carolina, right.
Right.
Yeah. Orville and Wilbur. Orville went on to start a popcorn company.
Wilbur just never did anything else.
He had I think he had a distant cousin who was a horse. No, I'm sorry, I got that backwards. He owned the horse.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to do that.
Alan Young, the comedian.
Wilbur, yeah.
Oh boy, we just get so sidetracked. Hey, those on Facebook Live, I do want to remind you now, whatever's on your mind, questions, comments, as far as horticulture, gardening, we don't have to talk about roses. Anything you want to talk about is, as I was talking with Tiger earlier, we are in the dead of summer, almost halfway there, so we're just trying to get by. We're kind of in between what's happening now and into the fall season.
Terry on Facebook says that she had a Kitty Hawk rose, and she's not sure if she still does, that she thinks it was a Gene King rose, and Gene King was one of the miniature rose breeders that put out a lot of roses, but you know, a lot of those roses are really difficult to find right now.
Speaking of that, in the newsletter this week, you have a story and a picture of miniature roses.
Those are called micro minis.
Micro minis, which
right.
are, and you had a good comparison because you had a
thimble
right next to it.
And that was the rose called C, S-I,
So small.
C, which is the world's smallest rose.
Wow.
That was bred by Pedro Dodd in Spain.
And they said, "Is that your rose?" And he said, "See."
Well, it's close.
There's a story similar, right?
Yeah, it was in his greenhouse. People would come into his greenhouse, look at his seedlings, and they would see that plant growing, and they would say, "Pedro, is that a rose?" And he'd go, "See."
I like this comment by Carla. How does your wife feel about Chris Greenwood now, John? Ha ha. Inspiring you to plant roses and get into it now with 1,300 roses.
Well, I'll tell you that now that she knows that Chris Greenwood has bred the #1 exhibition rose in the country, she might feel a little bit more supportive of me putting out some more roses.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Greenwood has put out a rose called Ring of Fire, which, I mean, all parts of the United States, people are growing this rose now, and it's winning trophies and all kinds of rose shows.
This is the new popular rose?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to guess it has some red in it.
No red.
Orange?
Orange, yeah.
Orange, reddish orange. Okay, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you look up Ring of Fire, you'll see it has perfect exhibition form. And some of our listeners up in Northern California had been going through 100-degree temperatures for the last month, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying this rose just stands out and looks perfect, while all the others are burned to a crisp.
So there you go. There's another aspect of this rose.
Yeah.
Now, here's an example of people. We talked about breeding roses with Burling earlier. You know, what goes into it? What are the attributes you want? So I would imagine, John, if you're trying to breed a new rose and this one doing so well in the heat, standing up, that you would want to take this attribute of this rose and maybe add it onto a rose that you're propagating.
Well, that's what Burling was kind of talking about. So, you know, Ralph Moore did that in his miniature roses when there were no striped modern roses. I think I have this roughly correct. And there were a very few old roses like the type Burling is talking about from the late 1800s, early 1900s. And so Ralph Moore started breeding with those, and he was the first person to bring stripes into modern roses. And he did it with miniatures. And then Jack Christensen later on, using some of Ralph's breeding, brought the stripes into full-size roses. And one of our listeners, by the way, pointed out how much they liked the rose that was in the newsletter this week that was yours.
Oh, the one that you gave me, Simsalabim.
Simsalabim, yeah.
And it was great because when John came over last week, everything was in perfect bloom. I could tell that, you know, he was looking to see if I'd watered. Everything was moist.
See if there's dirt in the pots.
When John comes
soil
over,
in
you've
the
got
pots.
to prep your place and make sure it looks good.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it does. And I think that was Kathy who said that she liked the rose that's in the newsletter. Doing quite well. And you mentioned something else too, John, that rose. Now, I've got a bud on there right now that's lost its stripes. It's just kind of yellow.
Yeah, cut that way back.
Yeah.
Don't just clip off the rose,
Cut
that stem.
Okay.
Because you don't want it to put out more yellow roses.
going
Unless you
yellow.
like that.
I mean, it's okay. It'd be nice to have variety on there, but...
Well, that rose that's pure yellow is called Frisco. And that's where all these hocus pocus, simsalabim, abracadabra, those all were sports of the yellow rose Frisco.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We're talking roses, but we can talk about whatever you want to talk about here on this Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon here on Garden America. We're going to take a break. Again, Facebook Live, Biz Talk Radio, Brian Main, John Bagnasco, and Tiger Palafox. We welcome you to Garden America. Stay with us. We get excited every weekend because we know that most of you plan to spend part of your weekend with us, and we do appreciate that. Been a long time here. This show's gone through many, many changes over the years, and here we are in 2021 as Garden America with Tiger Palafox, John Bagnasco, and Brian Main as we continue, John and Tiger.
We have an important alert here.
An alert? I wish I had a... Oh, hold on here. Hold on. You have an alert?
We do have an alert, Brian.
Stand by, guys. Stand by. Let me see here.
This is information specifically for Brian.
Oh, just for Brian?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Let's see what this sounds like.
Wake me up when you're ready, okay?
Okay, John, I think we're ready to go here.
All right, Susie wanted you to know that, asked the question, did you realize that Clint Eastwood was Mr. Ed's next door neighbor?
Well, here, let me address that. Let me address that. Now, I know that he appeared on Mr. Ed a time or two.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure he was the next door neighbor. He might have been, because I know they used to hang out with an actor and actress who were on the program as neighbors. And he could very well have been the next door neighbor, but I do remember him appearing on one of the episodes of Mr. Ed. So that's a good trivia question.
Yeah.
I happen. You actually go on YouTube, type in Mr. Ed Clint Eastwood, and you'll see the segment.
All right.
Go on YouTube. More questions, Tiger, right?
Yeah. So we got a question from Marguerite, and asks, battling an explosion of aphids. Never had so many before. I'm wondering if this drought is drawing them to our gardens. And she's in Reading.
Are they looking for moisture?
Well, aphids, number one, are drawn to new growth because they really like that soft, tender new growth. So usually when people fertilize heavily, we've talked about this before, if you fertilize with things like Miracle Grow or Triple 15, pushes out really soft new growth, and they really like that.
It's like veal.
Yeah, exactly. They really enjoy that. So anytime there's new growth on your plants, that's going to draw aphids. Now, I don't know if they react per se to drought. I know, for an example, a lot of trees during drought release stress pheromones into the air, which then will draw things like beetles and other problems to these trees. But a rose, I don't necessarily know if that would draw aphids to it. I think it's more probably you're fertilizing, you're watering, and it's the new growth. And, with the heat, the long periods of heat that we had, the aphid population didn't go down, because that's the other thing that happens is in the wintertime, all these soft-bodied insects go into egg form, and they kind of diminish in volume, in population, and then
their rendition of hibernation.
Yeah, and then they come back out in the spring. Well, when we have, prolonged drought or cool weather, not cold weather, the populations stay high because they never really go into full dormancy, and it never gets cold enough to kill them off. What do you think, John?
Well, I agree with everything you said there. Marguerite doesn't necessarily say that they're roses, that she has them on. It could be on all kinds of plants. But the number one thing I agree with, excuse me, was Miracle Grow. Mm-hmm. Or, well, not to pick on them specifically.
No, but the flashing neon lights that say, come chew me, come eat me, come.
Right. So if you're using those type of fertilizers, you're going to get aphids for sure.
Exactly. We've talked about that before.
I have 1,300 roses in pots and not a single aphid in my yard, and I don't spray.
And you talk about things like
sprayed it all this year.
Miracle Grow or fertilizers of that nature. It develops what we call abnormal growth, right? And the cell walls can become thin.
Well, it's just thin cell walls. Yeah, it's. I think we've used this analogy before. It's like somebody taking cocaine. Mm-hmm. They are really productive and move pretty fast.
For a while.
For a while, but it's not really good for you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And the same thing with Miracle-Gro. You can get really fast, lush growth, but it's not really good for the health of the plant. And the cell walls, because the growth is so quick, are very thin, and it's easy for sucking insects to pierce those cell walls.
This might be a bad comparison, but it's almost like being on steroids, right? It's not good for you in the long run, but you look good, you're healthy, you've developed muscles.
Yeah, it could be.
And so you're kind of a plant on steroids, and so you're susceptible to what we just talked about.
Yeah. So a good, just regular organic fertilizer schedule, or really, like we've talked about before, there's really not a huge need for, fertilizers, across the board, especially during the growing times of year, because hopefully they're sucking up the nutrients that are already in the soil. You're taking care of the soil first, and don't try to push out a lot of growth during the time of year when you see these aphids, whether they're on a rose, citrus, flower, because pushing out new growth is just going to encourage more and more aphid population. But, the nice thing about aphids is they are probably one of the easiest pests to control. Just a good hose washing them off after a few weeks of you being consistent washing off the plant.
Would Spinosad help on?
Not Spinosad.
No, because they're not a chewing insect, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, so you need things like insecticidal soap, neem oil.
Now, she says she's talking about squash and cucumbers, and they only use organic fish emulsion.
Yeah. All right. Well, she's doing that part right.
Yeah.
But then it goes back to what you were saying, Tiger. If there is a drought, the aphids want to eat something. They're going to
that's where
be
they're gonna go.
on things that are growing.
Yeah. So the better you take care of your plants, the more worries you have sometimes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, except
like rabbits.
by using the organic methods, she's going to have less of a problem than she's had before. But I don't think the aphids are really going to hurt the squash or cucumbers.
No.
It's a stream of water, you can hose them off. One thing about aphids is they're social insects, and if you knock them off the plant, they can't find their way back. They just lay there and die.
Yeah, they need help.
Right. But you have to be consistent with it because there's eggs that are hatching all the time, so you need to go out there every morning and just spray them off.
I tell everybody it's an 8-week schedule. So meaning the normal life cycle of a soft-bodied insect out there is about 8 weeks from egg to reproducing adult. So if you're consistent with whatever you're doing for 8 weeks, you've gotten rid of the whole cycle.
Okay, that makes
but
sense.
if you're really good for 4 weeks, there's eggs that are going to hatch at week 5, and then the problem starts over again. So if you can be really good on controlling pests for 8 weeks, you'll usually get rid of them, and it shouldn't be a problem anymore.
So there you go. I think we've covered most everything. If we missed something, go ahead and repost your question or your comment. I think we're caught up.
Aphids during this time of year are tough too, because a lot of the products that are used to control aphids are oil-based sprays, and being in the heat, you can't use oil sprays because it would then burn your plants. So it's actually a worse effect than the aphids were creating. So, definitely if you're treating for pests, be careful with what you're using. I don't know of one pesticide that really isn't oil-based. So you always have to apply in the late evening is probably the best time to apply these products.
We got to take a break.
Oh, all right.
We'll come back, Tiger. You can finish up your thought. We have 2 more segments to go. So, yes, those on Facebook Live, we ask for your questions, your comments. And, of course, we're happy to have you along on Biz Talk Radio. This is Garden America for your weekend. Brian Main, John Bagnasker, Tiger Palafox, back after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. All righty, here we go again. 2 more segments here on this Saturday. Happy weekend to you. Don't forget to check out the newsletter for many reasons, but also at the bottom of the newsletter, John puts a link in which will take you directly to our iHeart platform on the Spreaker, and you can listen to a lot of previous podcasts that go back the last 2 or 3 years here with Garden America. And you can also scroll down on Facebook when you go to our page anytime you want to for previous shows and previous podcasts, which are posted right there. So that's what I have to say about that.
We have a comment here from Susie, and I'm not sure if she's asking for other ideas for Mizuna besides salad.
That's what I kind of read it as.
And
which
stir fries.
Yeah,
stir fries a lot.
Different ramens, you use it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because that's kind of like asking ideas for lettuce aside from salad. You know what I mean? And
that's what it is.
And that's what it is. But like the problem with Mizuna is like you can say, well, you can make lettuce wraps out of lettuce. Yeah. But you can't use that Mizuna for lettuce wraps because it's a very thin leaf.
It's too small.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't get much good wraps. So, but the one of the nice thing about Mizuna is that for a leafy green, it does pretty well in the warmer temperatures where, lettuces and the other leafy greens do terrible this time of year.
Except for New Zealand spinach.
Yeah.
Did you see Dale's comment?
I did.
Good. Making sure John's up to date on Facebook.
Well, Tiger and I were kind of chit-chatting here.
And I want to keep you guys in line.
I see that you interrupted us.
Well, guys, I got to watch your tangents.
Right. All right. Dale says that he thought he had thrips on his roses, but now he thinks it's powdery mildew. How can he tell the edges of the roses are brown and crispy? Well,
brown and crispy.
Brown and crispy could be heat. Brown and crispy could be thrips.
Could be a law firm.
And it could be a law firm.
Could be describing French fries.
And it could be from diseases too. But the way to tell if it's thrips, Del, is to pull off one of the flower buds and get a white sheet of paper and pull the petals apart over the paper while you're looking at the base. But as you're pulling it apart, some of the thrips might fall out onto the white paper, and you can see them racing around there.
Sounds like a fun project for kids, huh? Look at these kids. We're going to see if we can see these little thrips.
Bugs.
Get some white paper.
Did you know that no one ever has a thrip?
It's almost thrips.
Oh, thrips.
It's thrips. One thrip is called a thrips.
What are 2 called?
Thrips.
Is that like moose? One moose is a moose, and a lot of moose are moose. Look at all the moose.
All right. So anyway, that's the way to check.
On thrips, John, you see the damage on the leaf, but you don't find them in the leaves usually?
No, thrip damage is to the flower buds.
Okay.
Flowers on gladiolus thrips we're talking about. There's different types of thrips. But the gladiolus thrips is the one that attacks roses. And usually a bud that won't open. And there's certain colors they like too, like white roses. They love white roses.
Go after
so they are not colorblind.
Right. If I went out to my white roses today, I would probably find thrips in there.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, it almost looks, the plant looks like it's heat stressed.
And if you do have thrips, what is your recommended treatment?
Spinosad, some thrips, depends how often you use sprays, because some have developed resistance to Spinosad.
Really?
Oh, really now?
Normally that's virtually 100% control.
Yeah. Every, 2 weeks to 10 days?
Yep.
Yeah. Just depending on the time of year. They like the heat. Thrips do.
Yeah, they love.
So as during the summer, it's usually more of a problem.
What you're saying is right now they're basking in ecstasy right now with our weather.
Yeah. Spider mites and thrips.
And whiteflies, somebody else pointed out.
Oh, yeah, whiteflies.
Lenore's got a question. Right above Rick.
Tiger, she wants to know why she doesn't see any fruits in her lime trees that are in containers. She said that it's in the mid-90s.
Well, I don't see any either on my citrus.
No?
Although John thought it looked healthy when he was there.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, part of it's the time of year.
Time of
Right.
the year. Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
but I mean, it's bears and Mexican lime. Mexican lime, you kind of see fruit almost year round, like a lemon.
Right.
Bears is highly seasonal, and you wouldn't be seeing fruit, right now. So it depends on the variety, like they're saying. And one of the biggest things with citrus in containers is fruit. Meaning you can have a strong, healthy looking tree, good green leaves, but then you don't have the production. And a lot of that has to do
Where
with
the energy's going.
yeah, well, the fertilization and then the watering. It's really easy in a citrus in a container if the citrus goes into flower and then you miss a few days of watering and then they lose their flowers, well then you lose the
You
fruit.
lose the fruit. Okay,
Right.
that makes sense.
So it's really easy to make those mistakes. In the ground, you get a lot more leeway. You got this tree that's tapping into reservoirs
So
of water.
it could be the heat then, getting back to the
Yeah.
possibility
yeah,
because of what you said.
But then also fertilization, with citrus, since they're such high producers,
They're heavy feeders.
yeah, they're heavy feeders. But then, a lot of people will feed with a citrus food, and that's a lot of times just nitrogen, and that's not always the things that the fruit needs to set fruit.
What about just a good fertilizer?
Well, no, and that's what I'm saying is
Yeah.
they just usually all-purpose them when there's a product, and I mentioned this before, called Citrus Growers Blend, which is a mix of micronutrients, calcium, macronutrients, which is really what the citrus needs to create that bond in that fruit. And in containers, there's no other way to get it aside from putting it in there.
Yeah,
Where in the
right.
ground, again, they can tap into those natural resources
Sure.
for those.
Okay.
So, but a lot of times I think it has to do with the watering time of year. But if it's a bear's lime, you shouldn't see
Yeah,
fruit.
Lenore says it is a bear's
It
lime.
is. It is.
Yeah,
bear's
so
lime.
you shouldn't worry right now.
Right.
Yeah, you shouldn't be seeing fruit right now.
You make me want to water my citrus more. I've kind of got this, even though I'm
Well,
watering a
no,
lot.
you don't want to water more. You just want to be consistent. See,
yeah.
that's the problem. Is people will go, "Oh, I'm watering my citrus," and they miss 3 weeks.
But I don't think.
And if that's that 3 weeks during the time it's supposed to be producing a flower,
Yeah.
the flowers all drop.
But I don't think I should be seeing fruit this time of year.
On your mandarins?
Yeah.
No, because
see.
they're not until the winter.
Not till winter.
Right. You should be seeing flowers pretty
Right.
soon.
You should be
Yeah,
seeing
we
flowers.
do. Hey, let's see. How do I get the newsletter? There's a question we get all the time. John?
Boom.
Well, John does a great job.
Brian asks me this every week. How do I get the
How do I get the
newsletter?
newsletter?
I
You would
said,
think you would just
we
sign
send
up,
it to
Brian.
you. Yeah, just
Yeah,
open it.
so how can they do that, John? Now, our webpage, our website's set up to do this, right?
Yeah, if you go to gardenamerica.com, I believe you can sign up. There's a lot of things going on that webpage. Tiger's been changing things faster than I can keep up with
But
it.
it's looking good the way. Yeah, go to gardenamerica.com because it's really easy to negotiate now. We have links to everything, but that's
Right.
one way to get the newsletter.
Or send me an email to John at gardenamerica.com. And if you wanted the one that we sent out yesterday with Burling's information and a nice article I wrote on Ralph Moore,
Sure.
I can forward that copy to you.
Okay,
So-
that's for Terry. Terry, that's how you do it.
Hey,
Now
I
to get-
quickly wanted to mention
go
when we
ahead.
were talking about the limes that Tiger mentioned the Mexican lime. That's also known as the key lime. So if you're in Florida, it's key lime, but over here it's Mexican or bartender's lime.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so is it difficult propagating lavender from cuttings?
It's
Rick?
not difficult. The problem is keeping it from rotting, because lavender already is kind of a drought-tolerant plant. So if you're going to root it, I think I would root it in just pure horticultural sand, and you'll have a better job doing it that way.
Yeah, they're fickle, and I mean, they're even fickle just in the ground. Sometimes you just look at it wrong and they'll die. So
My son he's turning into the house of lavender.
Really?
He put it in his flower boxes.
Because he likes the smell now, doesn't he?
No, it's just that when he put them in there, it went with everything that he had, but
Oh.
now they're just huge. and
oh yeah.
He's going to have to pull some out.
Well, I was gonna say they don't trim well, depending on the variety too. You can't
Yeah.
trim them back and then they regrow. Like a salvia, you can whack it down and it
Yeah.
comes back out. Lavenders don't do that. Yeah.
Well, you can't trim into old wood or hardwood. You just end up with a dead stem.
Yep. A bare spot. never recovers. Yeah. So, yeah, but I wonder, Rick, why are you wanting to produce lavender? You know, is it just propagating it to have more of it, or?
Yeah, because it's.
Let us know, Rick.
You can easily buy it.
Go to the
But Rick is curious about a lot of things.
Well, no, and that's just it. If you're curious and you just want to do it, that's fine and have fun. Go for it. But if you're trying to, it's one of those plants that if you're trying to actually produce it and create it, it would be probably more cost effective to just buy some 4-inch lavender plants and go from there.
On her Mizuna, Susie says maybe she'll just make pesto.
Pesto, yeah.
Oh.
But I've never seen pesto made out of Mizuna.
Hey,
Because
we're gonna take a
pesto is
break.
just basil, right?
I'm 10 seconds over the clock.
Oh my goodness.
Means nothing to our listeners and our viewers. So we're going to take a quick break on Facebook Live, Biz Talk Radio. Back with a final segment after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. We have made it to the final segment on a very, very quick morning/afternoon with our guest Burling early on, and all the comments, the questions on the Facebook Live, been talking about roses for the most part, and some of the maladies that people have this time of the year.
Yeah, and I know we mentioned Burling and the GoFundMe and why we are promoting this and hopefully help her out. But at the same time, I mean, one of the things John, has promoted about Burling is the roses that she does have and buying them from her. So, if you're not the kind of person that necessarily maybe wants to just give money away, you can do something like go to her website,
right,
ask her for her availability,
roses,
and buy some roses. I'm sure she would appreciate that as well, because you're going to find roses on there that, like we talked about, you will never find.
Too, like John said, she over-delivers.
And you'll never find these roses anywhere else. Yeah. So, what a fun way to support her. Maybe just if you're like, I don't necessarily have like $50 to give away, but I don't mind buying $50 worth of
get
roses.
something in return.
I'm sure, she will be just as appreciative for that as well. So,
one of the roses that Janet sent us an email and mentioned that she contacted Burling to bud the Golden State Rose, which was at the California Nursery Historical Park and had disappeared, and there were none left anywhere. It was a rose that originally came from Marion in France, and in the 1940s, and was sold through the California Rose Nursery. And so that they're trying to bring that rose back, and I was able to get them a plant a few years ago, and now they're trying to get some more, so they're going to give, I guess, cuttings to Burling, like I took cuttings from Green Planet at your house, Brian,
yeah, you took
and
Green
tried
Planet,
to bud some of those up.
And what else did you?
I took Green Planet and Nimbus.
That's right.
No cumulus, just the Nimbus.
I like that. That little cloud talk.
Yeah.
How about Stratus? No Stratus?
Not that I'm
Hey,
aware
guess
of.
what I think is going to come back? Because I think I'm seeing a little bit of growth, and
your banana?
Yep.
Think it'll come out of the
that
middle?
little stub is starting to grow, and it looks really good.
I've never seen. I saw his banana that he killed. Or
No,
tried
I didn't kill it. I allowed it to happen. There's a difference. No, I overwatered the banana.
Yeah.
It was in a place where it was very hard to see, as far as like, is it moist? What's that soil look like? And I'd stick my finger in there, and I didn't think it was wet enough. And then it's interesting because just before that happened, I said, I'm going to back off on the water. And sure enough, the next day it started to lean, and then it just kind of came right out.
So you're saying you didn't kill it, but you just got your cell phone and videoed the plant as it was perishing?
Something like that.
Posted it to Facebook.
I think it's going to come back, and that's going to be a great
I was
story.
surprised that little piece. You should take a picture of that, by the way, to see what it comes back
Okay,
from.
we'll do.
Because what I saw looked like something from The Thing or something.
It does. It looks very alien.
Well, it's like a corpse. It's like the corpse flower in the middle.
It's not soft or anything.
It's nubby.
You would think it would be.
Exactly. So I looked at it this morning, and I went, hey, this thing is changing. It's getting a little bigger. And
see, speaking of corpse flower, I think that it's getting a little out of control. So, number one, did you see at the Huntington? I think they have 3 of them now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Blooming? 3 blooming?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like, and then I just saw, I just follow on Facebook the California Science Center, and they have a small one now that they're starting. And I think that's just the thing now, is to every place should just have their own corpse flower. Maybe I should get one for the nursery.
I had one at one time. I killed it, though.
See, John kills things, too.
Well,
now,
it's called the corpse
banana
flower.
tree
John
in the
was...
patio. That looks
I've
good.
killed Helen Keller 4
Oh,
times.
God.
Right? You saw the banana tree in the patio, which looks good.
Yeah.
Which I think I'm going to have to move pretty soon. It's gonna outgrow its space.
Well, no, you're talking about the one that your neighbors gave you?
Yeah, the one that the different
Yeah.
species that actually produces
Yeah.
bananas.
Yeah. Carla, by the way, wants to pass on an attaboy. She says that it's a great show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
And it not opposed to other shows, but she does say that she always, it's always a good show, but she especially enjoyed today's show.
Excellent, Carla. Great way to start your weekend, Carla. We appreciate that. We appreciate everybody. We appreciate.
And Rick, thank you for answering my interest, which
The
is
hillside.
yeah,
comment?
he wants to have a hillside and thinking of lavender and thinking of putting a row of lavender across the top since it grows so well there. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Do it, Rick. Let us know.
And this is the time of year you've got to propagate the lavender when it's warm. It won't propagate during the cold weather.
Yeah, and even
It's
more
gonna-
chance of it rotting out.
Right.
Because it'll just sit there.
Right,
and-
unless you had a greenhouse or something.
yeah.
Hey, what else have you never seen, John, from the horticultural world that you'd like me to do?
That is such a weird question.
Because I've never seen that happen before. I'm thinking, what else can I do that you've never seen before, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I see, every day I see something new in the plant world that I've never seen before. Today, by the way, we should bring in the roses that we grew from seed to compare the progress.
Oh yeah, those ones. Yeah.
Remember we both planted seed?
You know what happened to those things. Mine weren't even seeds. John said they were more like sesame seeds. It's terrible. I knew.
But what made me think of that was you talk about seeing something new. I had these little tiny seedlings, so they're about maybe an inch tall right now.
Mhm.
At an inch tall, one of them bloomed,
Whoa.
and a stem is growing right through the top of the flower.
What?
What's that all about?
I even told my wife the other day, I said, want to see something I've never seen before? And her comment was, do I need to get up for it? I'm like, no, I'll bring it over to you.
No, and here's another one. Do I need my glasses for this?
Yeah.
That's another
You
one.
almost do. This is so small. When I get home, I'll have to take a picture and send
Please
it to you
do.
guys.
That is weird.
Because I've never seen it. It's a little miniature flower and really tiny, like probably the size of my little fingernail. But then this little stem comes right up in the middle of it.
We have to go. I hate that. John's always got something interesting, a story, and we've got to cut him off at the pass.
Wow.
Hey, that said, thank you for the great comments. We so glad you appreciated today's show.
Let's come back next
Yeah, I
week.
was going to say, so much show. We're going to do it again next week right here for the entire crew. Tiger Palafox, John Begnasco, I'm Brian Main. Thank you so much. Again, we'll do it again next week, and all of our shows and podcasts are right here on our Facebook page. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Be safe, and we'll see you next week here on Garden America. Take care.